Since Texas reinstated the death penalty in 1976, over 500 persons have faced execution within its walls. Each person has a story that will leave your mouth hanging. This video will delve into these men's and women's lives, exploring their last meals, last words, and the crimes that led to their inevitable fate. Eric Charles Nenno. Date of execution: October 28, 2008. Eric Charles Nenno was convicted and executed for the 1995 sexual assault and murder of 7-year-old Nicole Benton. On March 23, 1995 in Hockley, Nenno lured Nicole Benton out of a birthday party to his house. As soon as the doors were shut, Nenno forced himself on Nicole. As Nicole cried and struggled against him, Nenno strangled her to death. For days, he sexually assaulted her lifeless body and kept the corpse in his attic. Nenno's arrest wasn't immediate. The police visited his house because a neighbor suggested they check him out. After answering some questions, they asked if he didn't mind showing up at the command post for further questioning. After a polygraph, authorities remained silent for several minutes. Nenno then asked, "I failed, didn't I?" When the examiner told Nenno he needed to disclose the girl's location, Nenno said, "I think she's still in the attic." He then said, "They're going to kill me for this, aren't they?" Nenno was convicted of capital murder on January 18, 1996, and was sentenced to death by the district court in Harris County on February 1 of the same year. On October 28, 2008, Nenno was executed by lethal injection. He was the 13th murderer executed in Texas in that year. Nenno was pronounced dead at 6:20 p.m. When asked if he wanted to make a last statement, he replied, "No, Warden." His last meal was a grilled cheeseburger, 4 fish patties, 6 hard-boiled eggs, and coffee. Charles Brooks Jr. Date of execution: December 7, 1982. On December 14, 1976, Brooks went to a car lot and asked if he could test drive a car. The mechanic, David Gregory, joined him on the drive. On the way, Brooks picked up his accomplice, Woody Loudrez. Together, they dragged Gregory out of the car into the trunk. Then they drove to a motel where they bound Gregory to a chair using coat hangers, gagged his mouth with tape, and shot him in the head. Neither Brooks nor Loudrez would say who fired the shot, so the state sought the death penalty for both of them. Brooks received the death sentence on April 25, 1978. Loudrez also received the death penalty, but his conviction was overturned on appeal, and he entered a plea bargain in exchange for a 40-year sentence. He was paroled after serving 11 years. Brooks was held on death row at the Ellis unit that housed condemned men. After a last meal consisting of a T-bone steak, French fries, ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, biscuits, peach cobbler, and iced tea, Brooks was rolled into the death chamber at the Huntsville unit in Huntsville. He was the first person to be executed using lethal injection. According to BBC News, Brooks's final words were, "I love you," to his girlfriend, followed by a Muslim prayer. Richard Tabler. Date of execution: February 13, 2025. In 2004, Richard Tabler was caught and arrested for taking the lives of 4 individuals: 28-year-old Mohammed Amineh Ramouni, 25-year-old Haitham Frank Zayed, 18-year-old Tiffany Lorraine Dotson, and 16-year-old Amanda Benefield. On Thanksgiving Day of 2004, Richard and his accomplice, Timothy Payne, shot and killed Mohammed and Haitham at a nightclub in Killeen, Texas. 2 days later, Richard also killed Tiffany and Amanda, who worked as dancers at the same nightclub where he committed double murder. Tiffany and Amanda were his former co-workers. Richard allegedly killed Mohammed because he fired him and threatened to take out his entire family for $10. This was after the two got into a heated argument. Payne's was a case of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. According to Richard, he had a list of 11 employees from the nightclub that he planned to kill. Unfortunately, the girls were on that list. Richard was charged with the murders and was sentenced to death for 2 of them. His accomplice, Payne, was sentenced to life imprisonment. All of Richard's efforts to appeal against his death sentence failed. On February 13, 2025, Richard was executed by lethal injection. He was the second man to be executed in Texas this year. Richard was pronounced dead at 6:38 p.m. In his final statement, Richard asked for forgiveness from his victims' family members. He said, "There is not a day that goes by that I don't regret my actions. I had no right to take your loved ones from you, and I ask and pray, hope and pray, that one day you find it in your hearts to forgive me for those actions. No amount of my apologies will ever return them to you. And if you feel that this is what you need to get you closure, I pray it helps you have that closure. I just hope that one day you find that forgiveness to forgive me for taking your loved ones from you. I am deeply sorry." He also thanked the prison officers for their support and acknowledged the support of his family and counsel before his execution. There was no record of a last meal. James David Autry. Date of execution, March 14, 1984. On April 20, 1980, Autry shot a 43-year-old female convenience store staff member between the eyes with a .38 caliber pistol. The victim, Shirley Brewer, died instantly. Autry had been arguing with the staff about the cost of a 6-pack of beer. He left the store, but came back to discover 2 customers examining Brewer's body. They were 43-year-old Joseph Broussard, a former Catholic priest, and 30-year-old Greek merchant Athanasios Svarnas. Autry decided to kill them both as potential witnesses. He shot Broussard in the head and neck, causing him to die at the scene. Svarnas survived the gunshot, but with serious injuries. The injuries left him with permanent brain damage. Autry was arrested some hours later at the mobile home he shared with his friend, John Sandifer. He tried to frame Sandifer for the murders, but was overheard while talking to his mother over the phone at the station. He said he wanted to rob the Sac and Pac, but things got out of hand. On March 14, 1984, he was executed by lethal injection. He was the second man executed in Texas since the reinstatement of the death penalty. Autry was pronounced dead at 12:40 a.m. When the warden asked Autry if he had any final words, he said he didn't. His last meal was a hamburger, French fries, and a Dr. Pepper. Humberto Leal Garcia, Jr. Date of execution, July 7, 2011. On May 21, 1994, Humberto abducted, assaulted, and murdered 16-year-old Adria Soseda. Adria was at a party, got drunk, and a group of men assaulted her. According to reports, Leal offered to drive her home, but they started struggling when Adria tried to get out of the car and leave the party. Official court documents state there was a 30 to 40-pound asphalt rock, roughly twice the size of the victim's skull, lying partially on the victim's left arm. Blood was underneath this rock. A smaller rock with blood on it was located near the victim's right thigh. Leal was arrested, charged, and sentenced to death. After 16 years of appeals, Leal was executed by lethal injection on July 7, 2011. He was pronounced dead at 6:21 p.m. His last words included "Viva Mexico," meaning "Long live Mexico." Leal's last meal consisted of fried chicken, pico de gallo, and tacos guisados. Stephen Lawayne Nelson. Date of execution, February 5, 2025. Stephen Lawayne Nelson was convicted and executed for the murder of 28-year-old Arlington pastor Clinton Dobson this year. On March 3, 2011, Stephen stormed into the North Point Baptist Church. He met Clinton Dobson, a church pastor, and 60-year-old Judy Elliott, a secretary working at the church. Stephen wanted to commit robbery, so he attacked the man and the lady. He assaulted the pastor before using a computer extension cord to choke him, and assaulted Judy, who was so badly beaten that her husband did not recognize her when he arrived at the church. Stephen was found and arrested 2 days later in Judy's car, which contained several items belonging to her and Dobson. After his arrest, Stephen was charged with capital murder. He was executed by lethal injection on February 5, 2025. He was the first man to be executed in Texas this year. Stephen was pronounced dead at 6:50 p.m. His final words were directed towards his wife. "I will always love you no matter. Our love is uncontrollable. I'm thankful and grateful. It is what it is. Always live for me and enjoy life. No, I am not scared. It's cold shit in here, but I'm at peace. I'm ready to be at home." Reports say that Stephen was denied a last meal. This information is yet to be confirmed. James Edward Smith. Date of execution: June 26, 1990. On April 5, 1984, Smith was found guilty of capital murder and was sentenced to death by a Harris County jury. On March 7, 1983, Smith walked to a teller's window at the Union National Life Insurance Company in Houston, armed with a gun and wearing a mask. When the teller refused to hand over the money they had for him, he turned to the company's district manager, Larry Don Rojas. Rojas did everything Smith ordered him to. However, Smith fired 2 shots his way before fleeing the scene. 2 office workers chased him down. A passing detective noticed what was going on and apprehended him. The money was found nearby, and the gun was found in the field. On June 26, 1990, Smith was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit. He was pronounced dead at 12:31 a.m. In his final statement, "I myself did not kill anyone, but I go to my death without begging for my life. I will not humiliate myself. I will let no man break me." Then he smiled, winked, and said, "Hare Krishna." He wanted to have dirt as his last meal, but after he was denied that, he decided to have plain yogurt. Garcia Glen White. Date of execution: October 1, 2024. Garcia. Glen White was convicted and sentenced to death for the 1989 triple murder of Benita Edwards and her twin 16-year-old daughters, Burnett and Annette. On November 30, 1989, White went to Benita's apartment, hoping to use substances and engage in lovemaking with her. However, he became angry when Benita refused. He pulled out a knife and stabbed her repeatedly, alarming her 2 daughters. He went to the bathroom where he sexually abused Annette before stabbing her in the chest and slashing her throat. Then he sought Burnett in the bathroom, where he did the same with her. Their bodies were discovered 2 days later by Benita's boyfriend Solomon, who had gone to see her. He found the ladies lying on the floor and immediately called the police. White wasn't caught until 1995, which is 6 years after he committed the murders. He was sentenced to death on May 28, 1996. He persistently attempted to appeal his sentence, but failed each time. On October 1, 2024, White was executed by lethal injection. He was the 5th man to be executed in Texas in 2024. He was pronounced dead at 6:56 p.m. His last words were, "First, I would like to apologize for all the wrong I have done and for the pain I've caused to the Edwards family. I regret, I apologize, and I pray that you can find peace, comfort, and closure in your heart for the wrong I have done and the pain I have caused you and anybody else I've caused pain to. I just want to apologize. I take responsibility for it." He also thanked his family and the prison officials. There was no record of a last meal. James Emery, pastor. Date of execution: September 20, 1989. In October 1980, Pastor Stephen McCoy and Gary LeBlanc agreed to end the life of 38-year-old Robert Edward Howard in Houston. Howard's former wife and new husband hired Pastor to kill Howard. The compensation was $1,000. On October 25, 1980, Pastor, along with McCoy and LeBlanc, followed Howard to a nightclub in Houston where they tore his tires. When Howard returned to his vehicle, Pastor crept up behind him and shot him in the back of the head, On September 21, 1983, Pastor was found guilty of capital murder. He was sentenced to death the following day for murdering Howard. McCoy was found guilty of capital murder and was also sentenced to death. LeBlanc was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Howard's former wife and husband were given life sentences. On September 20, 1989, Pastor was executed by lethal injection. His last meal was a meal of steak, salad, French fried potatoes, and watermelon. His final words were, "I hope Mrs. Howard can find peace in this." Karla Faye Tucker, date of execution, February 3, 1998. Karla was sentenced to death for killing 2 people with a pickaxe during robbery. On June 13, 1983, Karla entered Jerry Dean's apartment in Houston around 3 in the morning, where she intended to steal a motorcycle. She went with her boyfriend, Daniel Ryan Garrett, and a friend, James Leibrandt. Leibrandt said he went to look for Dean's car, while Karla and Garrett used a set of keys to go into the apartment. Karla said Dean had lost the keys, and she had found them. During the robbery, Karla and Garrett went into Dean's bedroom. Karla sat on Dean, forcing Dean to protect himself by grabbing her arms. Garrett stepped in and used a ball-peen hammer, which he found on the floor, to hit Dean's head numerous times. After hitting Dean, Garrett left the room to carry motorcycle parts out of the apartment. Karla remained in the bedroom. The blows Garrett inflicted on Dean caused gurgling sounds to come out of him. Karla wanted to stop him from making that noise, so she picked up a 3-foot pickaxe that was lying against the wall and continued to hit Dean. Garrett then returned to the room and dealt Dean a final blow to the chest. He left the bedroom again to continue loading Dean's motorcycle parts into his car. Karla noticed that a woman, Deborah Ruth Thornton, was hiding under the bed covers against the wall. She grazed her shoulder with the pickaxe. Both of them began to struggle, but Garrett returned and separated them. Karla kept hitting Deborah with the pickaxe until she struck the woman's heart. In 1983, both Karla and Garrett were indicted for murder and tried separately for their crimes. Karla was sentenced to death in 1984. Garrett died of liver disease in 1993 while waiting to be executed. On February 3, 1998, Karla was executed by lethal injection. She was the first woman to be executed in Texas since Chipita Rodriguez in 1863. At 6:45 p.m., she was pronounced dead. Her last words were, "I would like to say to all of you, the Thornton family and Jerry Dean's family, that I am so sorry. I hope God will give you peace with this." She requested a banana, a peach, and a garden salad with ranch dressing for her last meal. Johnny Frank Garrett. Date of execution, February 11, 1992. Johnny Frank Garrett was accused of murdering a Catholic nun who lived across the street from him. On October 31, 1981, the prosecution said that Garrett abused, strangled, and killed 76-year-old Sister Tadea Benz in the St. Francis Convent. The naked body of Sister Tadea Benz was found in her bedroom on the 2nd floor of the convent in Amarillo at about 7 a.m. She was last seen alive the previous evening. Although there was blood on the sister's face, the nun who found her body thought nothing of it. She simply called for the body to be transported to a funeral home. However, an hour later, the nun found a broken window in the community room on the 1st floor of the convent. For this reason, she was prompted to call the police. The police arrived at about 9 a.m. and secured the crime scene. They found the deceased's nightclothes and a kitchen knife under the bed. Every print was lifted from the knife and the headboard. The autopsy revealed several injuries, including contusions to the head, stab wounds to the chest, and abrasive injuries to the front and back of the neck. Due to these reports, the pathologist determined that the death was caused by manual strangulation. The autopsy also revealed evidence of forcible rape. The evidence against Garrett was very strong. He was seen running away from the direction of the convent on the night of the murder. Plus, his fingerprints were found on the handle and blade of the kitchen knife hidden under the victim's bed. as well as on the headboard of the bed. On November 9, 1981, Garrett was arrested and charged with murder. He was charged and convicted of the crime. Garrett was held at Ellis Unit, north of Huntsville, Texas, which at the time held men on the state of Texas's death row. On February 11, 1992, he was executed by lethal injection. These were Garrett's last words. "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me. The rest of the world can kiss my ever-loving ass." His last meal request was ice cream. Kenneth Edward Gentry. Date of execution, April 16, 1997. Edward was convicted in the September 1983 murder of 23-year-old Jimmy Don Ham. Ham's body was found in a park on the shore of Lake Louisville. He had been shot in the chest and once in the head. According to prosecutors, Edward escaped from prison in 1982 and killed Ham so he could assume his identity since Edward was wanted. Edward was arrested in Austin, Minnesota on September 15, 1983. Here's Edward's last statement. "Thank the Lord for the past 14 years that have allowed me to grow as a man. To JD's family, I am sorry for your suffering over the past 14 years. I hope you can get some peace tonight. To my family, I am happy to be going home to Jesus. Sweet Jesus, here I come. Take me home. I am going your way." For his last meal, Edward requested a bowl of butter beans, mashed potatoes, onions, tomatoes, biscuits, chocolate cake, and Dr. Pepper ice. Lawrence Russell Brewer. Date of execution, September 21, 2011. On June 7, 1998, James Brid was walking home after drinking and spending time with friends in Jasper when Brewer and his friends offered him a ride. Witnesses reported seeing Brid riding in the bed of a gray pickup with 2 or 3 men in the cab between 2:30 and 2:45 a.m. Rather than taking Brid home, Brewer and his friends drove east of Jasper and stopped at a small clearing in the woods. Investigators suggest there was a fight in the clearing due to the disturbed dirt and broken beer bottle lying around. Investigators also found other items that could have fallen out of the truck while someone was being dragged. Brewer and his 2 friends, John William King and Sean Allen Berry, beat Brid. Brewer also sprayed his face with black paint. After the beating, Brid was chained by the ankles to the back of Berry's truck. The truck traveled along the dirt trail and turned onto the pavement of Huff Creek Road. Brid was dragged roughly 3 miles, which is about 5 kilometers. Investigators found Brid's items scattered along the dirt trail and pavement. His body bounced into a ditch on the right side of the road, hitting the rugged edge of a roadside drainage ditch just below the right arm. The impact severed the arm, shoulder, neck, and head from the rest of the body, which continued to be dragged for another mile. King, Berry, and Brewer then dumped James Brid's mutilated remains in the town's segregated black cemetery and went to a barbecue. Forensic evidence suggests that Brid had been attempting to keep his head up, and an autopsy suggested that Brid was alive for much of the dragging and died only after his head, shoulder, and right arm were severed when his body hit the ditch. The 3 men were tried and convicted for Brid's murder. Brewer and King received the death penalty, while Berry was sentenced to life in prison. Brewer was executed by lethal injection on September 21, 2011. Before his execution, Brewer ordered an extensive last meal: 2 chicken fried steaks with gravy and sliced onions, a triple patty bacon cheeseburger, a cheese omelet with ground beef, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, and jalapenos, a bowl of fried okra with ketchup, 1 pound of barbecued meat with half a loaf of white bread, 3 fully loaded fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, 1 pint of Bluebell vanilla ice cream, a slab of peanut butter fudge with crushed peanuts on top, and 3 root beers. When the meal was presented, he told officials that he was not hungry and had not eaten any of it. When the warden asked if he had any last words, he replied, "No. I have no final statement. Odell Barnes Jr. Date of execution, March 1, 2000. On November 29, 1989, Barnes allegedly took the life of Helen Bass. He shot her in the head after beating her, then stabbed her with a kitchen knife. Her body was found the following day by Sharon Murgerson, a longtime friend and former sister-in-law. She found Bass naked, lying face down on the bed in her bedroom. Barnes was convicted of and charged with Barnes' murder. On March 1, 2000, he was executed by lethal injection. These were his last words. I'd like to send great love to all my family members, my supporters, my attorneys. They have all supported me throughout this. I thank you for proving my innocence, although it has not been acknowledged by the courts. May you continue in the struggle, and may you change all that's being done here today and in the past. Life has not been that good to me, but I believe that now, after meeting so many people who support me in this, that all things will come to an end, and may this be fruit of better judgments for the future. That's all I have to say. For his last meal, Barnes requested justice, equality, world peace. If you like the way we create videos and you want us to bring more cases like this to light, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives.